Hello.
Hello.
Good afternoon, all.
We are being live streamed on YouTube tonight, so we need to be mindful of what we say and be kind.
Always.
Okay.
Vika,
Yeah.
can you see me?
Yep.
Okay. I can only see you.
Really?
Got any,
That's not
but
good.
well, maybe I don't have everything on. I see participants 7.
I've promoted everyone to a panelist, so everyone is on the screen as they should be on my end. So it might be something on your end.
It shows Dave still as an attendee.
Yeah, I just transferred him over.
There he goes.
Is there Curtis or someone, can you tell me, is there one thing I should be hitting here that I just have myself down in the corner and Vika. So there's participants.
It sounds like it might not be full screen or open.
Thank-
She closed it.
I'll
She'll be
keep an
back.
eye on. I'll keep an
She'll
eye
be
on her
back.
when she comes back. There she is.
Vika, can you hear me?
I can hear you and I can see you.
Okay, I cannot see everyone, so I'm going to ask you to please follow the agenda. And you can see me wave my hand if I want to speak. So if you will just run with it, I would appreciate it.
Okay, so on the agenda for tonight, the first thing that we have is call to order and attendance. So we have, oh, go ahead, Beth.
I now see everyone.
Oh,
So
okay. Well, then you can take over of the meeting then.
who is not here? Martha is here. So
Bob is on vacation and so is Beth.
yes, and Chris Loader was going to come in remotely. So let's begin with, we have the attendance now, and I think we'll see Chris in a bit. If we could move to, are there any public comments? Do we have a public here right now that you can see, or don't you know that?
I do know that, and we don't have anyone in attendance other than who you see on the screen.
Thank you. Okay. So I guess there's no public comments. I'd like to go forward with someone making a motion to approve the January 25th, 2024 minutes.
I make a motion, we approve the January 25th, 2024 minutes.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor? Raise their.
Aye.
So everyone has raised their hands. Great. So we're moving right along, and we will ask Curtis, good evening. We'll ask you to take over and talk about our site planning permitting update and the drawing schedule.
Perfect. All right. Pulling together everything, getting it ready for the pre-application review with the town planning board. I have an email out. I also called them today to, I can't think of his name off the top of my head right now, but
John,
yeah,
John
John.
Wilson.
Yeah. So I called him, left him a voicemail to give me a call back, and then I sent him an email. Dave was attached to it, just to give him the heads up, like, hey, this is we're looking for a pre-application meeting with our tight timeline here in the ordinance. It looks like it's a 21-day application needs to be submitted before the planning board meeting. So it looks like that would be Monday, 21 days, 3 weeks out from the April planning board. If that's the case, then we need John to have, hopefully he calls me tomorrow and we can talk about it, whether or not it needs to go to full planning board or not. And then if it does, I got to get this application into him on Monday, ready to go for a site plan review. I've already compiled the drawings together and I got a formal write-up of the project description. So I just want to touch base with him to see whether or not we need to go. And then if we do, what extents on the drawing set does he need in terms of like trenching and water on the site, things like that. Typically with the planning board, they really care about how the site, it locates on the site, planting, water runoff, traffic flow, things like that. And this project really doesn't pertain to any of that stuff that planning board has any say in, really. So that's kind of where we're at with that.
Do you have
What-
everything you need from broadband, Curtis? Just okay.
Yeah,
So
for the
plan
submittal
book-
at least. Yeah, he gave me a whole set of his end. I'm happy with it. I even have the specs for his pad. So if I needed to quickly throw it in AutoCAD and give us a quick section of it, I can. I have the specs of it. Otherwise, I think we're good to go. I have everything I need from the shed side, the specs of the shed, what the height, door, things like that. So I feel confident in what we have. If we need to go to planning board, I have everything needed for that review.
What about the radio shack, for no better word? Is that on a slab as well, Ralph?
Yes.
So, and you have all that, so we're all set with that? As far as,
Yeah, I'm providing the detail for that slab. The basically it'll be 4-inch slab in the middle, and then we're just gonna haunch out the edges around the whole thing. So that's the plan for it. We're not gonna pier in or anything like that. It'll just be a enlarged slab around the edge and the 4-inch slab in the middle.
also, when you speak with John Wilson, is there any way that you, in this pre-application review, can have a Zoom with this so that David Bruner could be part of this, because he's been in this from the get-go and has a pretty good idea from our side what's needed, and that would be the only way it might work. And maybe because this is a pre-application review, they might deem that it's all right to have a Zoom meeting.
Yeah,
Am I
I
right?
think I think it will be a Zoom meeting if he has the time to do it. Really, we need this pre-app meeting tomorrow or Monday morning, just to see which way he's gonna make us go. If he's like, yeah, okay, I see what you guys are doing, it doesn't really pertain to any of the site plan review process criteria, that really we don't apply to any of it. So that's going to be the conversation. It's like, hey, planning board deals with X, Y, and Z. We really don't have anything to do with X, Y, and Z. We're doing this instead. And see if he's like, yeah, okay, I agree. You guys don't have to do planning board.
Code enforcement officer, what about that piece of it?
That typically comes after planning board. Once you have planning board approval, you go through the code enforcement. That again, they're looking at the slab and that's gonna be it for code enforcement. And then electrical permit, which will come once we have the electrical drawings.
So Curtis, we talked about this, but for building permit, we were thinking broadband. Michael's
We'll
not
pull their
here,
own.
but we'll coordinate with him that they would do their own building permit for their slab and cover structure and whatever else they have going on there. And we would be responsible for the electrical upgrade and the radio equipment, feed and slab.
Yeah.
Are there any more things we need to add regarding this? You said we're waiting for the electrical drawings, correct?
Yes. Yeah, Tim last time what he said he would be mid-March or something. So either next week or what do you
I
say?
think he said 3 weeks from our call. So that
Okay.
I just set that at March 22nd, end of
Okay.
next week.
Yep.
So I think that will work. I just outlined a schedule from that point on, which we can talk about in a little bit, but we'd love to have the electrical drawings complete by then into
Yeah.
next week. Yeah, okay.
Is there any way we can stay on that, or are you comfortable that he knows that we need this as soon as March 22nd?
I mean, I'll send him a follow-up just to make sure, like, hey, deadline, and just put it as a calendar event. Deadline due, and hope he knows and understands he's got to hit it. He said what he said, so.
Are there any questions from everybody else regarding this particular item on the agenda? Are you comfortable, David, with where we are and that we're moving in the right direction with this?
Yes, as long as we can get that drawing package, then by the schedule I've just blocked out works backwards from an April 17th select board meeting, which would be our final approval on the final budget and funding appropriation, which means we need to submit the materials the week of the 8th.
Yep.
So from the 25th to the 8th is Monday, I think, yeah. That's 2 weeks to rally together some pricing and then sort out our budget sheet on this just to make sure I'm going to guess we're probably going to need a little bit more money because our already approved budget of 60,000 did not include anything on the radio equipment components. Unless Vika's just saved a ton of money on the furniture acquisition. You got a nice space there, it looks like.
It came out very nicely, but we don't have a whole ton of money left over.
So,
Okay.
David, when you ask about radio components, what are you talking about?
Well, it'd be the slab, which I assume the town would be providing. Not the prefab building. They would be bringing that in.
Right.
And then the electrical service connection, which would be underground, so the trenching conduit out to the slab. And then the cable tray, overhead cable tray, I assume that gets retrofitted in some manner. I don't know if it's a new piece or
Probably new.
we can cut fully new.
I would say so, because the one that's there is going to have to stay there, going
Oh.
from the building to the tower because of that's
Okay.
it has to go in there, but
So there's nothing in our plan for the slab to be, that was not in the plan with the radio part for all parties? Was it just the building?
Well, I guess I'd have to go back and read that agreement again. I don't remember any hard construction allowances in there. There was some money dedicated to some sort of improvements through the years. I can't remember how that was reading. Maybe other people know.
I just made the assumption, which I should not have done. But do you
Yeah.
have any feelings on that, Ralph? Do you know?
I don't really know. I kind of thought that would be the building construction that would fall into Yarmouth and Cumberland, but I could be wrong. But I know that's what Bill Shane wanted, was some crushed rock, gravel, and a slab. So I that would be my guess as well.
So let's on our to-do list, let's make sure we know what that is, whether we have to go see money from the town or is that in the agreement? So I've got things here and I'll review and we can all discuss via email, okay? What we can find.
Can I share my screen?
Please.
Yeah, let me promote you to a co-host. There we go. It'll take a minute.
Okay.
Okay.
So this was a little working sheet I started with the this was our budget that we had back last April. Gosh, it's been a year already. Identifying the interim improvements there in the town office and including the hard construction, the systems furniture, and then at that time we were looking at the service upgrade as part of this. This is the $60,000 project cost approved by the select board. And there were some CMP hookup costs, and then this is assuming that the trenching and site work could be done by Public Works. And a Casco Bay Electric bid of 15,000. And we're going to have way more detailed information for them with this drawing package. So that will be a number to rebid. We'll have Vika verify what she has spent relative to, what is that, $33,900. And there's some contingency in there. And then down here, the blue text is the radio equipment portions. And I guess we'll just read back in that agreement and make sure that the town's going to be providing the slab, the underground connection, and the cable bridge connection. In orange there are the broadband project costs. So they'll be doing their own electrical service from the main building panel out to their plant. The fiber connections, of course, and their own slab shelter and the building permit for those pieces. And then the items in green there, just thinking about, we've got these small little pieces of work, but, it's concrete work. So while the concrete sub is out there, can they pour 2 slabs and we split cost? The trenching, can we make sure that's coordinated so we have the timing right for 2 separate electrical contractors to get in and out of there expeditiously? So I think, we've got some work to do here to fill in some of these numbers, see how this all is going to compare to the 60,000, and then either go back to the select board and say, yeah, we're making it, or we need some extra monies, and where will that come from? Then we'll be ready to go in mid-April. And I think that would make Michael happy if for the broadband portion and get that going.
I have a quick question. How do we go about getting a contractor? How do we pick? Do we have to put that out the bid for those 2 little slabs?
Well, I wish Michael was here because I think he's got a builder in mind to do some of their work. And I don't know if it's the slab work specifically. And if that's the case, maybe we can piggyback onto that and then share the costs. I don't know that this requires a general contractor. I mean, we could contract directly with the electrician for the service upgrade, I would think, as long as the trenching is covered by the town. There's going to be some coordination.
I didn't know if we could use a local contractor if I mean, it's just a couple of slabs. I just don't want to have to jump through a bunch of hoops. We could just hire somebody, like if Doug Ross was interested in doing it, he could take care of the slabs.
Yeah, let me check with Michael, see how far along he is of getting somebody on board as a builder.
If I may say so, in his notes, he had Bo in there on that, I think.
The trenching or for the concrete work?
I I was looking. So anyways, we'll get that straightened out
Okay.
as to who's doing that.
Am I missing any numbers on this budget? Anything else we need to spend for? We, I think we will not be having a new generator, and maybe that's a separate topic to talk about, but
That's in our next, that's our next agenda item. I appreciate that this format so that we can see the pieces of the puzzle that's needed. And I just feel as though now we can go back and look about the slab and about where Michael was on that. And it might have been just the trenching, but I thought it was also the slab. So we'll see. And we'll try and get that all answered as soon as possible. But that's great, a great piece to work off from. And if any of you other people get word as to how that was figured out, and the slab, perhaps Ralph too, you can find out from the piece that's written up too. So if you'll check that over, that would be great. Is there anything needed more from Curtis other than we're waiting for those things and he knows that we're on a timeline, and appreciate you going forward with that as soon as possible, Curtis?
No problem.
I guess one thing to coordinate, Curtis, did you see the load test?
No, I have
Information
not
that came
seen that.
back?
Nope.
Okay, somebody should probably forward that to you. I will.
How did it
So
look?
it looked low. It looked really low. I don't, maybe Ralph, you could speak more to it. in
Yeah,
more
if you want
detail.
to, I helped Chip with it.
Yep.
So yeah, Chip did a load test on the box. We ran everything we could think of in the station. We ran both compressors, coffee makers, lights, water, everything we could think of. And then he figured in one small window
AC.
AC unit. And with everything running, it still seemed like we had plenty of room for what we're talking about and adding on. So yeah, it worked out a lot better than we had anticipated.
Perfect. Okay, that's good. I mean, that's good news then. So we don't have to mess with generator or anything like that at this time. Again, we can later on down in the future when we talk about, of course, the town hall renovation and taking over and heat pumps and things like that, then we'll revisit the loading and figure out what we got. But I think with on the generator side, because we'll have the amperage from this upgrade for everything else. So
yeah, and a lot of the, some of the heavy hitters like the air compressors, those the 3-stage air compressor we have, that's a huge draw, and that will be gone from that building. So.
Right. That's true too. A lot of the bigger draws will be pulled away with the fire station.
And that included, when you said in the box, that included all the running things that would be running in the town office, right, too?
You're kind of broken, but yeah, the town office was running, and there's really no other loads in there other than their computers and lights, and they don't have any kitchen issues or anything. I mean, we ran water, so the water pump was running and everything. So yeah, everything seemed to be covered.
That's great.
Perfect. That's just a good box I've checked off.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, hopefully I should hear back from John. Let's hope tomorrow, and we'll keep that moving.
Thanks, Curtis.
Perfect.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we've talked about the testing, and do we need to, I think we need to make sure that the town Board of Select gets that report from Curtis. I believe Bob Ernest has it. I have it right now. I can send it to
Bob
Curtis.
Ernest has it.
So, we don't, it's there, and should we formally say that we do not recommend a new generator at this time? Maybe in the next meeting, you might, do we need to do something formally, or Vika, can you just say that that we do not recommend?
I don't think there needs to be a formal agenda item. The board has quite a few things going on right now, so I think if we could spare one more discussion, then they would appreciate it. Under the TA report, I do have for next week a very brief update on where the town office renovation stands, that the furniture has been delivered and we're in kind of the final stages of unpacking. And I can mention that a load was, electrical load testing was done, and it determined that no new generator is needed. I think that's all they would be happy to hear.
It sounds slight, but we've been on this road so long. I would just like it to be in some format, that it's in a piece of paper that says we do not need that. So I think it's important if you put it in your administrator's report. That's great.
Will do.
I think we could go into a little bit more detail in this package we're going to present for the April 17th meeting. I think a final approval of the project.
Perfect.
And I'll be gone that meeting, so you guys will be on your own.
Darn it.
Well, I think we can handle it, don't you, fellers? Okay. Now, I understand we have to have a timeline for the electrical upgrade. We need the actual work done by Swift Current to see that, the drawings. Going back with that, I as far as having it done, I'd like to have us know where we're going so we don't stop. And so here's the time for discussion on, do we go back to Casco Bay Electric after we have this, the electrical package, the drawings? Do we go right back to them, or should there be a bidding process so we can offer it out to Chip and Ken and other people that might be interested? What are the thoughts? What are you people thinking on this?
I think that it would be, go ahead, David.
Well, I think we should include Casco Bay Electric, but I would also like to have some price comparison. I don't know the process with the town on that. Vika, maybe you have an idea.
We can absolutely put it out to bid. We can put it on the Maine Municipal website. We can, do and advertise it anywhere we want. Or in this case, you can kind of selectively say, these are the island electricians that we have. Can they give us a price point? Are they interested? And this is the one that we had originally interested in, get a price point that way. I think it depends on, if we put it out to bid, then there's got to be, a time frame. They send the proposals in, and then we have to have a formal meeting. So going back to when we picked Port City and the process we went through, when we put it out to bid, it's going to be a similar process. So it's going to extend it and stretch it out. And I think that's a decision for the board to make, whether they want to do it that way or kind of individually talk to some electricians and see if they have an interest outside of the one that you had initially had on the list.
Well, remember this, with the Casco Bay Electric, that was getting a price point, and that was not a commitment. I have no idea if they've got their, if that calendar would allow this even to get done. So that's why I'm anxious to get that electrical drawings and that whole thing put together so that we can jump on this, because I have no idea. You know, they gave us a price and that was a year ago. So
Valid point.
there may be a delay anyway.
I think it would, if we can avoid the whole bid process, I think it would be a lot easier and better. And go with them and ask Chip and Ken if they're interested in doing it, and giving all three of them the time frame, and just go with that. I think that's a reasonable way to do it.
I agree.
I think so too. Thank you.
I mean, ideally, I think it would be great if one of the island guys could handle it. Because one of the things that we didn't include in the budget for renovation are barging costs or ticket costs. And that added, you know, easily a couple $1,000s that we didn't even think about having been here. So that could potentially drop down the cost.
Well, I think it, and I may be wrong, but in looking at that, I'd have to go back and look and see what Casco Bay Electric, but they're very aware of barging and tickets, so they might have had that in the number. I don't know. So let's stay on this and keep moving with the idea that we get somewhere with the electrical drawing. And I'm gonna be a pest. I don't know about you, Dave, but I will be calling and making sure that this moves.
Absolutely. I'm going to be on vacation next week, so I mean, I'll be in touch with you. I'll send you little text messages. Do we have the drawings yet? How about that? And then you
That's
can pester,
great.
you can
I'll
pester
be-
Curtis.
I'll be the pest of next week. How's that?
Good.
So our next item on the agenda is the town office renovation update and the budget numbers, how we came out with the expenditures, knowing that the 15,000 was in that budget for the electrical.
So we have not crept into the 15,000, so that's good. But there is only 16,000 left in the budget. So I don't know if that, you know, so that's really what we have to work with, without going back to the board and asking for any extra funds if anything goes over.
That's 16,000.
16, yeah. So with the math that I did, where we are right now, there is $16,000 left in the overall budget that was appropriated for this particular project, including the electrical upgrade.
So you've spent 44, is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
No,
So
good job.
The renovation ended up being a couple $1,000s more when the time came to it. Ridge Plumbing ended up having to come in here and move things, so that ended up over, you know, $3,500 bill that we were not anticipating. Barging costs, we had 2 trucks that came to the island and left the island, and so right now we have received an invoice for one of them, and so in this cost I have anticipated 3 more bills from them. Couple $100 in CTC fare for the 3 workers that came for 2 days, you know, 2 weeks. The furniture was a couple $100 difference, but that was minor compared to everything else. And then I did go to Lowe's and Home Depot and spend a couple $100 on shelving systems. So we have, there was in the initial drawings, there was, it was included for them to put 3 shelves in one of the locations. And so rather than paying for their time and them bringing more things in, I had done one trip to Lowe's and made my husband put them for free. And then I just picked up the other ones today and haven't told him yet, but he's going to be coming over here this weekend and putting up the rest of them. So that was about $400 worth of expenses for all the brackets and the wood and everything like that. So so all in all with that, we did go over close to $11,000 over the initial budget, including all those things.
But we had the contingency in there for like 7 or 8, right?
We had the contingency, but then in addition to that, when the select board made the vote, they rounded up the number for one of the accounts. And so
Yeah.
inevitably they ended up giving us a little bit more than what we asked for by a couple $1,000s. So I took that number that was approved. And that's kind of what I worked off of. And it's, unless the barging costs come in less than what I'm anticipating so far, what we've spent, including the bill from today for the shelving, there's $16,000 left in the budget.
Good.
And that is 15 of that is the electrical.
Correct.
Okay.
So I
All
left the 15 in there, but I can't say that the rest of it did not get sucked up.
Based on the,
We were in a good place until, we realized that John and them had to come in and really move things around. But then the kicker was they ended up having to come back a couple of times because the heating system in the entire building was really acting up. And so that kind of crept us a couple $1,000s into the cost of things.
that should be in another line. I'm sorry, Vika, that should, if the furnace
So
was,
when they came back, we put that in another line, but the cost for them to move the stuff was what is included in this budget.
okay, thank you.
So it's likely we'll be asking for some more money. I'm just guessing, gut feel. But we have a reason. I mean, we've added the
Yes.
broadband and the radio
Yeah.
components to the project, and it's an incredible benefit for the town. And we're getting a good deal in the end, as Ralph has said in the past. So I think politically,
so
it's a
My
decent ask.
argument is still going to be what it's been all along, that, and I haven't looked at the numbers. I would have to sit down and talk to Michael about this, but they have in the broadband budget money specifically for a generator. So them not having to get their own generator for this location and the work that's being done for this location with the electrical work to upgrade this building is one expense, but then putting things on the slab and doing some of the other stuff, to me, that's not a cost that was in the initial cost of this project. And so I want to creatively think of how we could potentially tap into the broadband funds, because the cost of them putting the equipment here is going to be cheaper than anticipated versus going to the select board and asking for additional funds. Because the money's there. It's whether we can creatively find a way to utilize those funds.
Is
Well,
that money, excuse me. I just wanted to ask the question, is that money that you're talking about, this isn't the grant money, this is what the town appropriated for a budget for broadband installation?
Well, it's all the same thing. So what the town appropriated for the broadband, we went and we got a loan for it, and then the grant matched it, and then Axiom is supposed to pay it. So it's one big expense with lots of things coming in. So essentially, one of those areas wherever the committee is looking to appropriate the cost of the generator from, that would be lower than anticipated, which is where I would want to try to tap into to see if some of the costs that are going to increase this cost as a result of broadband coming here could be shared with the broadband.
David.
Yeah, interesting point. I was talking to Michael. He was very clear that his electrician will be providing the electrical service from the new panel in the main building out to their slab. And I kind of jokingly said, "Oh, do they want to handle the upgrade wire from the pole to the building. And he kind of chuckled a little bit. But I mean, it may be there's some portion of that power upgrade for the main building that we can say, hey,
Yep.
this is required because we're adding additional loads. Granted, their
Yes,
broadband
and
load's not
I think
huge, but
I
no.
think the important thing to keep in mind here, and it's something that Michael often needs to be reminded of, is it's town of Shebig funds. So if there's already money set aside for the broadband project and we can utilize some of that to contribute to these costs because of what we're taking, that's less money that we're going and we're asking the select board to utilize taxpayers' funds. It's money that's already been appropriated for that. And that's something that, I've had that conversation with him before. I think he kind of gets lost, and this is the broadband project, and he wants the broadband project to be as minimal in cost as possible. But in the end, it's the same taxpayers, it's the same pool of cash. So if the overall project ends up being less, but a couple $1,000s more than they anticipated, that's a couple $1,000s less than what an additional motion that the board is going to have to make for appropriation. I think it's just a matter of really getting him to understand that.
So who would do this negotiating? Would we talk to Michael beforehand or just queue this up for the April 17th select board meeting and have them hash it out?
I would like to talk to him ahead of time if we have a general idea of what the cost is. So once we get any information from Curtis, and then if we have any information for the electrical upgrade, I would like to run it through him just kind of out of respect, but ultimately, I'm not going to say I'm going to bypass him and go to the board and make a recommendation to the board, but it's not Michael's final decision. And if the board goes against his recommendation, then they might have to. But I suspect that once there's an understanding, there is no reason why these funds couldn't be used towards that unless there are specific stipulations, which I have not seen yet.
Ralph,
I'm going to have to leave here pretty quick. I was just wondering, I see on the agenda the Fire and Rescue Department and Town Hall study. I was just wondering if I don't know what that is.
that's our new building, and where we go with that, and also where we are with the municipal building. In other words, to get that back on the agenda, Ralph, so we're moving forward on that too. And I think one of the things that I wanted to talk about was asking Carol to attend a meeting with us regarding going after monies, because she's been in contact with these people as well as Bob Ernest. And I think it's a whole new meeting. And I just wanted to make sure that you were aware, that everybody was aware, and also ask David to briefly go through because you put some steps in our minutes, which clearly states the plan, that what we need to do in such an order. So I was asking if Dave could go over those. On your page 1 of your minutes, it talks about the draft package from Port City is in hand. So could you kind of go through a few of those things, David, that you've...
Sure. Do you have time, Ralph? I'll try to make it.
I've got about 2 minutes.
Okay, I'll make it quick. So I'm not sure about the order, but we did talk in the January meeting about sort of 3 different ideas or tasks. One was making connection with the finance committee, maybe in connection with the select board, discussing possible funding strategies and try to determine how the town might be or might not be willing to take on additional debt service. The other one was initiating or reinitiating the contract with the legislators, presenting more detail to the project, which we now have, and then finding out our methodology of how we would apply for federal money. And then the third was developing a public newsletter and a timeline for workshops for community education and input. And I don't know about the timing. I guess I haven't really thought it through. If some things might be concurrent there. Bob seemed to think, I think at the last meeting, if I remember correctly, that we should start this finance committee interaction first. Seeming that if we can, if the community has some willingness to contribute something, I think that might have an impact on the federal funding request. But I'm not an expert in all this, so that's
Well,
that's what happened.
If I may say, the Board of Select, particularly Carol, who's been in touch with these people, and Bob Ernest, have said that they feel, based on our experience, which has been unsuccessful in going after money because of the way we did it, and I won't get into the detail of that, but what they want us to do is start having some sort of a meeting where we go in and say, what do we need to do? What do you need from us? So that we go into the federal government with the idea, or these people not just saying, okay, we want money. So we want to introduce it. And I think if I look at all these next steps, I would suggest that we get a workshop going with our plans in hand and have the finance committee and Port City there to discuss where it is, because every grant that I looked at, and I'll be happy to send that to you folks, has an amount of money that the town has raised for the project. In other words, it's a feeling that we can't go and say we want the whole shebang from the federal government. We've got to show that we've got a process, that we've got a time frame in which we can bond if we have to, or that we get X amount of dollars. But in any of those new monies that have been passed out for fire stations and everything, there is town involvement. So I think that it warrants us to get comfortable with what we're doing and first have a workshop with the board and the finance committee and get a plan together. Okay, what are we going to do? Ralph.
Completely agree with all that, with the exception of, I know in 2007, the federal government did give out a grant for a town office public safety building, pretty much exactly what we're talking about. And it was 100% grant, but grants change from year to year dramatically. But yeah, we need to get organized and we need to have town money ready to allocate for this. Absolutely. That's a no-brainer. And I got to go.
So are you for having us get a meeting together with this group of peoples and get our act together with the plans? Do we need to have another meeting as the building committee to plan out what we're doing, or can we put something ahead? What are the thoughts? And Ralph, I'll let you know what we say.
Sounds great.
Okay, thank you. David.
So before we go ahead and do that, I would just make one suggestion. So Bob had emailed the senator's office, and we received a response. Bob and I are going to schedule a meeting for next week for the Portland office that oversees Cumberland County, in terms of discussion for the CDSs, which are the congressional directed spending. And what we're gonna do is to have a video conference with them to discuss the island infrastructure projects, which the two big one right now are the Stone Pier and the fire or the safety buildings. and then see how these projects could potentially fit in the opportunities that are provided. So the one thing that I do know the board seems to be in agreement on is that going for the CDSs right now is definitely key and important, but I know that board members aren't opposed that if we go and there's a grant that says, okay, you know, town office or new fire department building or something like that is what we have available, then kind of the direction will go into focusing the attention onto that versus the stone pier. Not necessarily because one is the more priority of the other. It's that what's the funding that could potentially be available in that moment. And so right now, with us being in full swing of the budget season and the board meeting on a weekly basis, I would suggest that the facilities committee hold off on asking the finance committee and the board to have a workshop, because we have those meetings scheduled. We have a transfer station workshop scheduled. There is a lot going on. My recommendation would be is let Bob and I sit down and have this conversation with these people. And then I can report back to this committee about what the outcome of that was. And then maybe that could be an opportunity to make the next steps for the discussion.
I'm very excited that you've got this meeting. This is great, because we're all either for the stone pier and we're also for the fire department. So I know that the storms have impacted a lot of decision making, and a lot of money is going down east versus maybe we weren't as impacted as some, but we still have monies coming in. So it's all good. That's wonderful to hear that you're going to get that opportunity. So based on Vika saying that, what are your thoughts? Should we wait and see what this meeting is? Do we schedule a meeting right after the electrical piece is supposed to be in our hands? What is going back to the 3-entity party site plan there? I'm jumping back to that. What is the feeling on a meeting? Where should we be on this? We've got two things going here. Anybody?
I think that if you're planning on bringing something to the board on the 17th, I do think that it would be important for this board to meet prior to that.
I was thinking April 4th, Thursday. And hopefully we could get some numbers back on the electrical work and submitted to the select board materials of the next week. Right? That has to be in a week prior, because the materials for the board
So
meeting?
what we needed is, so if the meeting is on the 17th of April, let me just bring back to that more. Yeah, so we would need it the week before. Ideally on the Thursday before would be, in comfort zone, but obviously the sooner the better. The packets typically go on the website the Friday before the meeting. And so we try to collect everything on that Thursday before. So the 11th is really when we would want to try to have any information.
Okay.
I'm kind of nervous about it not happening. I hate to say that, but we've been put off quite a bit in these things. And I'm wondering if we shouldn't have our meeting on the 28th. So we know that March 28th, so we know we have everything in order and what we do need to get for the meeting in April.
That's fine if we get the electrical drawings by the 22nd, and then we can get those out to Chip and others if we decide to. Yes, sure. If we don't get them, which is not likely because you're going to be bird dogging it, right?
I'm,
We won't have much to talk about.
no, we've got to do this because I want it to be done by August. I'm, I'm being more realistic that, it's wonderful. April, June would be fantastic. Thank God we've got everything together in August because that's when they're supposed to, no, July. I'm sorry. July is now what broadband's saying. Is that correct? That they'll have things going then. So I just want to stay on it. So that's the decision. Does that work for everybody that we tentatively schedule our meeting so we get our act together for the presentation in April, if we have to find other things or if we have to maybe get the bids to Pelton and Chip and then to Casco Bay. Yes, Vika.
March 28th, I would not be able to attend that meeting because at 6 p.m. we have the select board has a workshop with the rec center and Kids Place and the school for the rec center memorandum of understanding.
Okay.
How about
Well-
early that night? How about the 8th or 9th? Is that possible?
The 8th or 9th of April?
Yes.
The 8th, the 9th, I have a joint stand-in meeting with the board and the school for the budget.
So the 8th.
So
we
what's
try-
wrong with doing April 4th?
Well, Beth wanted to push it a little harder.
Yeah, but now we've jumped to the 8th or the 9th.
So I mean, you guys can by all means have the meeting without me if you want to do it on the 28th, or move it to the 4th.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I meant the 1st or the 2nd. I'm sorry. I jumped a week there.
Oh, 1st or the
Yeah.
2nd?
Yeah.
Yep, by April 1st or 2nd, I can do that.
That makes sense, Beth?
Yeah, and like I said, if we don't have this, then we move it to where we can meet. And the purpose of our meeting is to see if we've got any, we can get any bids and have our act together.
Right.
There may be a lot of loose things that, we ask each person to pick something up here. I mean, I wish that somebody had said, oh, the slab for the Radio Shack is in the proposal. Things like we need to find out tonight, maybe some things that we'll need to know for our meeting with the board. I just want us to have our, I would say a stronger word, but I won't, our act together.
Yeah, well, for meeting earlier, there's going to be more of a working meeting. I think, the big meeting for our committee is going to be what we're going to take to the board, the select board, right? In terms of asking for more money and how we're going to ask for it. In order to do that, we're going to have to have a pretty complete set of numbers.
That's right.
So, I mean, that meeting would have to happen anyway. So, I mean, I'm all for meeting once every 10 days or whatever it takes, but
I'm not, don't get me wrong. I don't like a lot of meetings. I'm not a meeting freak, but I just feel as though there may be some things that we need to do. So why don't, for the benefit of our team, why don't we go with the fact, see what we get, and then make a decision on a meeting prior to getting things in order. So having said that, what is going to be the date of the meeting where we have everything together and we know what we're doing to the board, to present to the board?
well, I was hoping for April 4th.
I agree with David. I think you should tentatively schedule for April 4th and hope that everything comes in and have it
Okay.
discussed then.
Okay.
Yeah, I think and you and I and Michael and Bob, we can kind of push gathering these numbers and get Ralph involved too. We'll just do that offline. I think we can manage that. And then meet on the 4th.
That's great. Okay,
Okay.
I'm gonna put that out, that we have a meeting for that as soon as possible, and our purpose is to review the plans that are supposed to come in from Curtis. Okay, I appreciate this, and we've got some work. We've got some work to look at, and a lot of it has to do with our new building and how we're going to present to the public, and our meetings with the finance committee. But this whole need to get the electrical and the slabs and everything, it's like that really needs to get done. And then I feel like we can put a lot of energy into doing a good job at getting the communication or what's going on out there. Tim, I noticed you've got your mic muted, but I wanted to ask you your thoughts on the renovation with what you've had with your new digs.
Oh yeah, it's great. New desks are really nice. You know, you can stand, and work if you like, which I love. The whole renovation, I think, went really well. Colors are nice, like the colors. Shelving, there's more shelving coming, which is great. And it's all about storage, and the retention, that whole retention thing is such a, I give Vika credit, because we have to, the town has to retain so many documents, and, it's a challenge. And I think, we're on the right path to, getting all that taken care of. So no, it's been good. Loving it all.
How about the space and quiet? What are you all feeling, Vika and Tim? How do you feel do you feel like you've got a space that's really yours and you can concentrate on what you're doing?
Yeah. It's funny, because where I'm located, it's a nice space. I'm separated, kind of, and whatnot. And, Vika has her office in the back now, which I'm sure she's loving. I know she's loving. And the girls up front, they're digging their new space. And yeah, it's a nice layout now, if you will, because now the code enforcement officer and, harbor master, they have, their own separate spaces, yet they're in the same room, but, they're good that way. So I think it's perfect. I really do for the town. Absolutely.
Thank you. I was up there and I thought how great it looked, and how everybody was very positive. And I hope what happens, this is my hope, that the conference room will be used more often when you need quiet.
Yes.
And when there are people coming in to meet, and other like the code enforcement, I hope it's taken advantage of. So
I know.
The conference room is being used right now.
Great.
Yeah, Coastal Waters usually would meet in the town office, around the front entrance, and they're all sitting in the back room right now meeting.
That's wonderful.
I will say, I was very mindful in the best ways that I could to try to keep the numbers down. I did splurge on one thing. What I did is through the process, I found the original paperwork that was presented to us from the state of Maine about us becoming a town. And it was, a large print. Just found it in a box of paperwork with like old stuff that I was going to throw away. Original signatures, and it's beautiful, and it has a really great paragraph about us becoming a town, about being a fishing community. It's really, really nice. And so I was going to buy a frame for it, and I tried looking for frames, and I tried finding frames, but nothing could just make it pop. And so I brought it to the framer and had it professionally framed, which I think for something like that, if the board doesn't like that expense, I'll pay for it myself, because it's going to look phenomenal when it's hanging up on the wall. So
Yep.
that was my big splurge.
That's awesome, and I will get a GoFundMe for you for that frame, because I think there's people that would very happily give you money for that. That's
Yep, so
wonderful.
once that comes in, it's gonna be hanging up on the wall next to the wall that we have all the photos.
That's great. Martha, I know you're muted, but I wondered if you had any questions or concerns that you might want to add. Do you feel that the town office is sharing well with the fire and rescue people?
I haven't been in, but I think so. I mean, I haven't heard anything other than that. So
That's awesome. That's what we want to hear.
Trying to keep it clean.
Yes. Martha, do you have any questions about what we're doing? Does it make sense that, we got two things going with the Radio Shack and broadband and the electrical, and then we've got plans that we have for the future. And, we're trying to get things done, and it's hard sometimes to stay on track with one thing and yet leave something else. So I hope it's making sense to you.
yeah, I was just kind of going through the paperwork of the Cumberland proposal to see if it had anything specific on the foundation, but it didn't really. It just said the shelter and a foundation. So maybe they'd be willing to kick in.
Did it say foundation? Did it?
Well,
What, can
I
you
mean-
read it to us? That's encouraging.
hold on, let me find it again.
That's all, that's okay. We're doing very well on this meeting, and we will be done in a minute, but if you saw that, I'd love to feel good
Well-
about saying foundation.
The following plan is submitted to the Shebig Fire Department for review and discussion. And number 2 says Cumberland and Yarmouth would be interested in purchasing and installing an outside 8x10 communication hot shelter to house all the equipment, as well as the fire department equipment. Requires ground space behind the station for a shelter and foundation.
Yes.
It doesn't.
Oh,
So
wow.
it doesn't say that specifically that they would pay for it, but it does say shelter and foundation.
Can I ask, so the shelter and the foundation, aren't there gonna be two? One for the radio stuff with Cumberland, Yarmouth, and Shebig, and then one for the broadband stuff?
Yeah,
Right, but this is specifically the tower.
Yeah,
this is that contract, Vika, that was written up. So,
yeah,
it's kind
Well-
of loosey, but it does say it.
Right, it's kind of more the proposal of what they wanted to do. I think it was that last package.
That's
Yeah,
the-
I'm looking at the co-location agreement dated February 5th, section 2, construction of new shelter buildings, shared facilities. Tenants agree to construct at their sole cost and expense an approximately 8x10-foot shelter building with concrete pad and HVAC system on the property in the location. Okay. The building will be connected to both of the electricity serving the property as well as the new generator. Doesn't say who's going to pay for that. Tenant shall be responsible for moving the equipment located in the fire station to the new building and the costs thereof. Okay. So it looks like the slab is included by Cumberland Yarmouth.
Thank you, Martha.
Well, thank you, David.
Yeah, but
Okay.
you got us on the track, and so, that may not be a huge amount, but it makes a difference. We don't have to ask for that. I think we should just assume that's in the contract.
Yeah,
There's relocating and installing the new radio equipment, and there's some Shabig radio equipment in there, it sounds like.
Yeah,
Right.
because
Up on the details of this, but yeah, so there would be some split cost on that, depending on whose equipment's being installed.
but I think that the fire
but maybe
department
they'll pay for a
knows that.
portion of it.
Doesn't Martha, doesn't the fire and rescue realize that, because aren't they moving your what you have that's in where the electrical system is? Isn't that
The janitorial closet.
Oh, there you go.
Some of our equipment's in the janitorial closet, and I think they're gonna move it out in the new shelter.
Okay. So that may go under the fire budget,
Good.
the fire
It would,
department.
I mean,
budget.
ultimately, it would come out of the same reserve account, for the building facilities. The difference is that I think facilities committee isn't necessarily going to need to go back to the select board and say, this project that we agreed to do, we've gone over, give us more money. Unless the electrical is, significantly more, in which case, I mean, I wouldn't struggle going back to the board and say that we went a little bit over budget due to these unexpected costs, because I don't see that anything has been so lavish and extravagant that that it doesn't have, good standings for it. So
Well, it sounds like we found a piece of the puzzle, and I appreciate that. And we'll kind of, if we can, David, would you share that piece that you had put together that shows the different costs that we were looking at? Can you send that so that we can maybe fill in some? And if anybody else, Martha, you seem to be looking at documents and you're good at that. Please did you see what he had, and see if you can match any of the needs up from maybe even that contract with the other towns?
Yeah.
And if you could send that to us, David, that would be one of the things on the agenda.
I may not be here for the April 1st, 2nd, and I don't know. I got summoned for jury duty, so hopefully,
Well,
fingers crossed, I don't get called.
Yes, but it sounds interesting.
Yeah, I don't need that in my life right now. Thank you.
I understand. So having said that, we don't have anything else on here, but we are going to have our next meeting April 2nd.
No, on
I
the
thought we
4th,
agreed on April 4th,
Thursday, normal time of
Thursday,
day.
April 4th, 6
Thank
p.m.
Thank you. Yep. Sounds great. Is there any other questions or concerns right now? I won't ask you what you've got for a budget number, Vika, for 2024 for the buildings as such.
It's no different than it was in past years. At this point, the challenge in so let me see the numbers. New town office $10,000, and the building facilities is the regular 20,000 and an additional 20,000, so 40,000, which the $20,000 addition I'm recommending for some improvement at the transfer station. And so at this point, unless the facilities committee has a legitimate purpose for a justification for adding extra funds, it would be very difficult, I think, for the board to justify it and to support it, because the board is really looking heavily at utilizing any information that they're going to receive from the finance committee and really building a better plan in terms of what needs to be upgraded and when and what needs to be, have money set aside. And so Stone Pier, obviously, as always, is having a good chunk of cash to put into it, because the board is working heavily towards having enough funds. So if it's a multi-million-dollar project, a certain percentage of what would need to be done up front, it could be covered. So knowing that information, they're setting that money aside. But if this committee has a specific number and a justification and a reason for it, I'm happy to put in it, and I'm happy to argue it and back it up. But other than that, that's what's in it.
I was only referring to if we run amok into the things that are needed for this three entity project.
There is currently cash in the facilities and in the new town office, which this expense would fall under the facilities.
Okay, that was all I was.
Sorry, that was a long answer for something you weren't asking for then.
No, that's okay. That's all right. Are there any any other items we should be discussing? If not, yes, David.
Probably an item for discussion with the larger committee, but related to the fire station. You know, we talked about this newsletter and public workshops and just public outreach. And, you know, how important is that relative to pushing this process with the finance committee and the board? I mean, is there going to be community concern that somebody's trying to push something through when there's not, you know, should we build general support in the community at the same time that we're trying to work out the financials and the strategy for those? So, you know, maybe if we start thinking about it now, we could be ready by the summer to have some kind of an event, or coordinate it with the fire station open house, or, you know, whatever. Just let's get some momentum back on that. I know Chris had some work on a newsletter. Can we kind of reboost that and think about when and where how we would do that?
That's a great idea. I think myself that I'd like to be solid with the finance committee and the board as to where we're going, so that we go out and there's no surprises, that we have the board backing, or we back the board, that we aren't, you know, that we're unified, and then we have an open house. But can you see the card? I don't know if you all got that, but I was very impressed with the Shebig Island School Enrollment Community Forum. They had a meeting last night, and there was several people attended, and it was a discussion regarding the school sustainability. And I think that if we could get a plan with the Board of Select backing us, that we could have a meeting like this with a look at what we've done so far and the needs of how constricted and bad shape as far as the fire department's workings, so they could see the crowding. But I know, Vika, you were there. My husband went and said it was to the point and explained what they're doing with enrollment and the possibility of having tuition students. So, you know, they've got to focus, and they did it. And I feel as though we need to make sure that we are on the same page as the Board of Select.
So would it be appropriate that when the facilities committee makes a presentation to the select board on April 17th, one brief question that could be asked the board is that facilities committee would like to start doing outreach throughout the summer? Does the board support that? And if yes, then the board could start really progressing in that direction.
Good. I like that.
Yeah, because I think we also have to have the reality of this project, which is millions of dollars, and we know that it can't happen tomorrow unless we got all that money. I think that we all have to realize that this is a way out. In other words, is it 25, 26, 27, 28? That's 2028. So that we get this, so that we get a plan that everybody's in agreement and we go forward. Whereas I just would like it in order, I guess, so that it's realistic, with the understanding, unless we received a huge grant, that we really have a plan together financially. I think the community would want to see that.
Okay.
Okay. That's something to talk about on the 4th, isn't it?
Is the meeting on the 4th going to be Zoom?
Yes.
Okay.
Until Mr. Bruner gets on an airplane and comes back. No, we could have a meeting and have him sitting there on the computer, but
Oh, no.
No.
May 19th, I'll be there
Oh, awesome.
for
That's
the
great.
season. Yeah.
But please, people, be thinking about what we've talked about, how you see this going out to the community, and how you would, and think of you as being, a taxpayer or somebody that lives here, how would you want to see it? And we can get some more information from Vika with how the school did that, because it was very positive, I heard, and everybody walked away with, this is really good. We've got great teachers and a great school. So
It sure was.
okay, so we will schedule our next meeting for April 4th, and I would ask, having blabbed a lot here tonight, that people get a hold of me with some agenda ideas as how we might be discussing this. And I appreciate everything that has been done, particularly David, your work with Curtis and getting things moving. I can't thank you enough, and we'll see the results, I hope, on the 22nd.
Glad to help.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And
Have a
thank
good
you.
night, everybody.
Thank
Night.
you.
Thank you for the feedback. It was a good meeting. Thank you.